Most working professionals are not broke because they spend too much, they are broke because the structure of their income is fundamentally incompatible with the structure of wealth accumulation, and no amount of discipline within that structure changes the outcome. The standard financial advice given to salaried employees is straightforward: earn more, spend less, and invest the difference. It is rational advice. It is also insufficient. The reason is not that saving and investing are wrong. The reason is that this framework treats income as a fixed condition and optimizes behavior around it. What it does not address is the architecture of the income itself, specifically how time for money exchange structures the ceiling on what accumulation is even possible. When income is derived entirely from employment, three structural dynamics quietly constrain financial progress regardless of how responsibly that income is managed. The first is income scalability. Salaried income scales linearly with time. Every additional unit of income requires an additional unit of labor, and that labor is finite. Assets, by contrast, can generate returns without proportional input of time. The practical implication is that a professional who saves diligently from a fixed salary is building a smaller asset base from which future compounding can operate, compared to someone who has structured even a fraction of their income to scale non-linearly. The second dynamic is taxation sequencing. In most developed economies, employment income is taxed before it reaches the individual. The money is earned, taxed, and then invested. Asset-based income structures, through business ownership, investment vehicles, or property, often allow capital to be deployed before taxation events occur. This sequencing gap, compounded over decades, produces substantially different outcomes for two individuals with identical gross incomes and identical savings rates. The third structural dynamic is what might be called structural dependency concentration. When a single employer represents 100% of income, the entire financial structure, mortgage payments, loan obligations, living expenses, rests on one decision made by one institution. This is not a risk that diligence mitigates. It is a structural fragility that exists independent of performance or work ethic. Addressing these dynamics requires a reorientation of how professionals deploy their discretionary financial capacity. The first structural move is to allocate a defined portion of savings not toward consumption assets, but toward income-generating assets, instruments or structures that produce returns without requiring additional labor hours. The implementation mistake here is waiting until discretionary income feels sufficient before beginning. The structural benefit comes from establishing the architecture early, even at a small scale, because the compounding mechanism requires time above all else. The second structural move is to examine tax-advantaged vehicles with the same analytical attention given to budgeting. Pension contributions, ISAs, 401k structures, and equivalent instruments in various jurisdictions are not simply savings accounts, they are mechanisms that alter the sequencing of taxation on capital. The common error is treating these as optional supplements rather than primary structural tools. A professional who maximizes their tax-advantaged capacity before allocating to taxable accounts is operating at a different structural level than one who does not. The third structural move is income diversification, not as a side hustle, but as a deliberate reduction of structural dependency. Even modest secondary income that is independent of the primary employer changes the risk profile of the entire financial structure. The mistake is treating secondary income as extra spending capacity rather than as a structural buffer that can eventually be redeployed as capital. The distinction that separates financially intelligent professionals from financially fragile ones is not effort or earnings, it is the interpretive lens through which they evaluate their financial position. The financially fragile professional asks, how can I optimize within this structure? The financially intelligent one asks, what is the structure costing me that no level of optimization can recover? Structural awareness does not require exceptional income. It requires the recognition that the system surrounding you was not designed with your accumulation as its primary objective. If this changed how you evaluate your financial structure, consider subscribing.